What's up, guys? I'm live from my mom's basement. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about Solidly VE33, and I'm going to explain why it's the liquidity black hole for DeFi and how it benefits DeFi, as well as some lessons we can learn from some of the different Solidly protocols that have failed, as well as some of the wins we have seen from the forks. So, before we get into this, let's go and explain what VE33 is and how it creates this liquidity black hole. So to understand how the VE33 economy works, you have to understand that the protocol first revolves around the token itself, and you have to understand that this token is made to create cash flow for the investor. So let's give an example using Velodrome in the Velo token. The bribes and the fees incentivize buying the token. Understand that the APRs on the Velodrome DEX, let me go ahead and show you guys what that looks like. So as you can see here, all of these pools are denominated in the Velo token. This one is paying out 420% APR. So if I deposit in there some Wrapped ETH and some SLM, I'm going to earn 420% paid in the Velo token. So the swap fees, those are paid to the voters. So as you can see here, Sony and USDC, all of these swap fees and all of that volume is going to be paid for anyone who votes on this pool. So if I own 1% of the votes, I'm going to get 1% of all of these bribes. And as you can see here, the bribes and fees, it's $87,000. So if I own 1% of that, well, I'm going to be getting almost $1,000 in bribes and fees, because 1% is just about $1,000. It's actually $870 is 1% of, you guys get the point. Those are going to go to the voters. Now, me as a voter, if I'm like, okay, let's crunch some numbers. If I buy some Velo and I lock it up, and let's say it costs me $10,000 for my position, and let's say it pays me $870 every single week, I can understand that, okay, well, if I got $10,000 in this, it's only going to take me about 11 or 12 weeks, as long as the price stays the same, to repay my position. Now, if price goes up, I also have this VE NFT that I can sell on the NFT marketplace. If price goes down, well, hopefully the APRs will stay high enough in order for me to get the cash flow from my position. So this is where you're seeing this portion of the flywheel. And I'm going to go back to this infographic so you can understand. There's a lot of fees going to token holders. So this incentivizes people to buy this token, which juices the APR, which then allows more liquidity to come to the DEX. They're coming over to the DEX because they're like, wow, these APRs just got juiced. So you see how this says 420% APR? If the Velodrome token doubles in price, the APR doubles because it's denominated in the Velo token. So this juices the APRs, increases more liquidity, more people deposit over here. This also deepens the liquidity for it. So if I wanted to buy some Wrapped ETH and SLM, whatever, me as a trader, I'm going to go to this DEX, or at least if I use an aggregator, it's going to aggregate through this to give the best price, because it's just how it works. You're going to get the best prices because if you're making a trade, you want the best prices. So this then creates the less slippage aspect. So this creates more trading volume and then adds more fees, which when it adds more fees, this incentivizes more people to lock stake and it gets higher emissions. This then adds more liquidity, less slippage, more trading volume. That's where you get this circular flywheel. So everything denominates or revolves around the token itself. And as long as that token is being protected and locked up at a healthy rate, so as long as a lot of the tokens are being locked and staked, this actually helps the flywheel keep on going and keep on spinning. And you're having several of these protocols come in and pay in order to get liquidity. Now you're probably asking, why are these protocols paying for liquidity to this DEX when they can just do it themselves? Well, here are two reasons, in my opinion, why it's actually beneficial for a protocol to use a Solidly fork instead of creating a LP pool, something like SushiSwap. ETH, Sushi, and I pay you Sushi for depositing in there. Well, in my opinion, two of the main reasons for this is first, it's an inexpensive way to build deep liquidity. So crunching the numbers on some of these forks, some projects are able to get $4, $5, even $6 in liquidity for every $1 they pay. This is astronomical because normally they get about 50 cents in liquidity or maybe 25 cents for every dollar that they pay. It also creates a overwhelming amount of sell pressure on the token, which makes it hard to recover from. Sushi is one of the classic examples of what a pool 2 farm can do to your token itself, and you can see here that it's basically just been wrecked. Now, this actually isn't as bad as some of the other charts. A lot of them, they're basically at zero for a lot of the food farms. But being able to bribe these VE33 DEXs, you're able to get deep liquidity for an inexpensive way. And second, it also creates a form of free marketing. A VE33 DEX is kind of like the water cooler of the chain. Let me explain what I mean. If we go over on Equalizer Finance, we can take a look at some of these different bribes that they're offering. Now, as you can see here, we have USDC Phantom, USDC or Phantom Equal, we have Phantom MPX, we have Phantom DAI, and I'm just scrolling through these and I'm like, what? There's Conch? What is Conch? I'm just kidding. I know what Conch is. It's a meme coin on Phantom. But when you see you get a random bribe, especially as a staker of Equal, you're like, okay, what is this Conch token? Should I vote for this? Oh, let me go ahead and do some research and see what the details are on Conch. Going on Dex Screener, I immediately see, oh, okay, well, this is a meme coin. Shiba Poo Conch token. This is basically free marketing. For the people who would have never seen this Conch token, they now come and look and they're like, wow, this is cool. Well, it's a meme coin. I'm probably just going to go ahead and hold my bribe. Now, if I decide to hold my token, that doesn't create buy pressure or sell pressure on the token. So that doesn't help this in any way. However, looking at the Equal pools, you can see that it does have its own pool itself. And this is the Wrapped Phantom Conch. So they're basically going to get liquidity for their token, because people that are now holding it, they're like, hey, maybe I can LP with it and deposit into this pool. So they're depositing into the pool, building deeper liquidity. And as people are voting for these pools, this will also juice the APRs for it because they're directing their Equal emissions into this pool, which again, when you juice the APRs, this incentivizes the liquidity. So other people are looking to buy the Conch token and deposit into the pool. So to summarize, as a protocol, it's more beneficial to provide liquidity on a VE33 DEX. One, because it offers free marketing, whereas on your own native DEX that you've created, it's not as beneficial, or even something like on PancakeSwap or Uniswap, because it gets lost in the woods. Whereas on a VE33 DEX, you pay people with bribes, people want to look at your token, and it's like the water cooler of the chain. This is where everyone meets up, they come to do bribes, and the people staking their Equal token for Phantom, or if you're on Velodrome, the Velo token, you see what everyone's paying in bribes, and you learn about new protocols. Second, it's an inexpensive way to build liquidity. So with some of these VE33 DEXs, some protocols, for every dollar that they spend, they're getting $4, $5, $6, $7 in liquidity just for the bribes that they're offering. To put into perspective, that's more than 1,000% better than what they'd normally get, just depending on how much it benefits, obviously. Do you remember what we said here about the flywheel of bribes and fees incentivizing buying the token? This is really important to keep the flywheel going, that the stakers are getting a healthy amount of fees to keep them in the position, or obviously they'll lock up, to incentivize other users to deposit into the position. If more people are not buying the token, the APRs start to drop, which is not healthy for the token price, which also decreases the APRs of the DEX, and it creates this cyclical flywheel in the wrong direction called a death spiral. So here are the top traded pairs on Optimism. And as you can see, the top 3 pairs are actually stemming from Uniswap. What's interesting is that the volume is 18.2 million for $6.1 million in liquidity. If we go and take a look at the Wrapped ETH USDC for Velodrome, you can see here the volume is only 3.1 million. So this is significantly less, which if you look at the liquidity, it's actually twice the amount. It's got $10.3 million in liquidity compared to 6.1 in Uniswap. And the reason why most of the volume on Wrapped ETH and the USDC pair is going through Uniswap is because the fees and the slippage is lower due to the concentrated liquidity. So the most of the trading volume is actually being routed on Uniswap instead of on Velodrome. Now, this is where, in my opinion, I think these solidly dexes need to focus on. This is to focus on things that are the long tail assets. And the long tail assets will benefit from this because first, they get free marketing from the bribes and paying people for getting liquidity. And second, it's an inexpensive way to build liquidity or buy liquidity. There is no reason whatsoever for Wrapped ETH to bribe and get liquidity for their token. They have plenty of liquidity and plenty of demand for their token itself. They don't need to do anything. So in my opinion, for these dexes to dominate, I think they need to focus on their target audience of long tail assets, not the short tail. This could be like FBOM, Ring, Liquid Driver, Synthetics, just to name a few. And just looking at the volumes, let's take for example Synthetics. If you type in the search bar SNX, let's go ahead and see where most of the volume is at. Well, liquidity 8.3 million on Velodrome, as you can see here, and 1.7 million on Uniswap. Now, obviously, most of the liquidity is on Velodrome, but you can see here their volume actually surpasses on Velodrome. Now, the ratios don't surpass because 3.7 million in volume for 8.3 million in liquidity is not as good as 1.7 million in liquidity and 2.1 million in volume. That's way better on Uniswap, but being that it's, I wouldn't say focused, but being that it's a long tail asset, you can see Velodrome is winning this race in the long tail asset for the Synthetics token. So they're going to get most of the swaps routed through them because they have the best liquidity and the best prices, and it is only reflexive because as more traders come over, it juices the fees, it juices the revenue for anyone staking over there, so more people will decide to stake over there. So liquidity flows to where it's treated best, which then traders go to where the liquidity is the best, and you have this cyclical flywheel. So focusing on the long tail assets, in my opinion, will help these dexes dominate. And this isn't just for Velodrome. This is for several of the other dexes. As you can see, if you look at FBOM on the other chains, you can see most of the liquidity is going to be on the solidly dexes instead of things like Uniswap or SpookySwap. So I think focusing on the long tail assets will be beneficial for the protocol in general because it creates a win-win situation for everyone. First, the protocols benefit because why? Well, they get the free marketing and it's an inexpensive way to build deep liquidity. Second, the protocol wins because now they're going to be the go-to for all these different aggregators to use their DEX as the cheapest prices and the lowest slippage. Of course, trading fees are going to be a race to zero, hence why you have things like Robinhood or Webull that basically charge nothing to trade stocks. And it's going to be the same way in the DEX space. People just want the best prices, period. That's how it rolls. So let me explain how the VE33 protocol becomes this liquidity black hole for all the tokens on the chain. If the APRs are denominated in that token itself, everything is going to depend on this token. So if the token goes up in price, people are going to flock to it. If it goes down, well, people are going to leave the DEX because APRs decrease. So one of the benefits of the VE33 DEX over something like a Curve model, because it also has the vote lock, is that you have a NFT that can be sold. So with Curve, if I lock up my tokens for 4 years, I'm roasted. Like if Curve dumps or if I ever want to sell out of my position, it ain't happening. That cash flow has to pay for itself and I have to live for another day. The money I invest into that, it's gone. Like it's locked for 4 years. Sure, you can get it back if you don't do nothing with it, but in reality, it's gone. But if you look at the VE33 tokens, an example is like Equalizer Finance, Velodrome. They have their own NFT marketplace to where if you have these locked tokens, you can actually sell it to someone who is looking to buy into a position. These are just some of the NFTs on Equalizer. Now let's say, for example, I wanted to get 150 equal tokens. Well, as you can see here, I mean, there are some selling for less actually. So if I wanted to buy this one to get 150 equal tokens, this one has a $1,500 value, but I can pay 3.1K Phantom, which is at this time is 1.4K. So these do sell at a discount, but I can still cash out of my position. So this is a benefit of using this type of DEX over something like Curve. Whereas Curve, I would get $0. Whereas here, I would get a little over 90% of what I invested back, depending on the price. Let's just say the price is the same. That's the benefit of the VE NFTs. And this is beneficial to the protocol itself because if I'm up multiples and I lock my token, eventually I want to realize profit. Now, having this NFT and me selling this is going to have no effect on the price of the token itself because this is not trading against the token, or at least it doesn't relate to the token. Sure, it may remove some people on the marketplace that were looking to buy tokens and lock them. Instead, they would buy a NFT at a discount, but it doesn't create that sell pressure on the token because me selling 150 of this equal VE NFT isn't going to hurt the token price, which remember, the APRs are denominated in the token price. So when there is less sell pressure on the token, the APRs can stay higher, which incentivizes more liquidity, which then attracts traders. And after you attract traders, this allows more fees to go to the stakers. And when the stakers get more fees or higher APRs, this incentivizes other people to stake and earn more fees. And you have this cyclical flywheel that creates this liquidity black hole for the chain itself. Now here's an example of what happened with a solidly fork or a VE33 fork that was unable to do well. This was Dystopia on Polygon. And as you can see here, the flywheel broke apart. And this could have been done with the fees not being high enough. And this could have been done with the stakers not earning enough revenue to keep the token price afloat, which keeps the APRs higher and keeps people staking into the pool. So then this flywheel basically fell apart. Just like these flywheels roll up, they also roll the other way. So you have to incentivize them and keep them fed. Another example is XCal. Now, XCal, it really just never took off. And this could be because a lot of the orders aren't even routed through XCal. And if you go on Arbitrum just to check the chain and see which protocols are getting most of the volume, you can see here most of the volume is actually coming from Uniswap. You got ED, you have SushiSwap, you have Sharky, you got Uniswap, you got ZyberSwap. You have some of these different protocols that are gaining volume. Now, if you look at ZyberSwap, for example, how's it ranking up high? We can see here the TVL is pretty high. So you can look into the protocol, see what they're doing. These guys are not a solidly fork, but they do have an interesting model with locking to try to prop up the APRs and incentivize more liquidity. And then you even have another one called Cone on Binance Smart Chain that, the flywheel just not so much. It doesn't look good. So let's give you an example of Velodrome. Velodrome has actually been a extremely successful solidly fork on Optimism. Now, what's interesting about Velodrome that actually has a benefit over several of the other solidly dexes is that they have the OP token grants. They basically use this to pay people to lock up their tokens and stake them. hence why they have an extremely high locking rate. And as you can see here, over 70% of the Velo tokens are locked. These are the lock tokens, and this is the total Velo supply. You can actually see, if you're looking to lock some tokens, you can see how much you can get as a Optimism airdrop for locking. You can see here some people are getting a rebate. This case is like 31%. So on average, they're getting like 20 to 30% in rebate. So what this means is, if I deposit right here, as you can see here, for every dollar I lock, I get 34 cents back. And that is kind of what is helping this Velodrome flywheel. This is beneficial for Optimism, because Optimism gets cash flow from this, because the more transactions there are on their chain, this actually goes back to the Optimism Foundation. But this is a smart way for Velodrome to use the OP grant as a benefit to their protocol. Another example is Thena. Now, Thena doesn't have the OP grant that Optimism does, but there isn't concentrated liquidity on Binance Smart Chain yet. Now, of course, they do have PancakeSwap, which is dominating and doing extremely well. But Thena, you can see here, the TVL is steadily climbing up, and it's having the flywheel starting to kick into motion, and more people are flocking to Thena. Let me go ahead and show you guys their website. You can see they also have an extremely healthy lock rate. You want to look for a lock rate that is at least 60+% for some of these tokens. As you can see here, the total locked fee is 28 million, or a little over, and the circulating supply is 14 million. So this is a little over 66% of the tokens are locked up for Thena. Another example is Equalizer Exchange. They are not competing with concentrated liquidity, or some concentrated liquidity with a meaningful amount of TVL. Yes, KyberSwap is over there, but they don't have something like Uniswap, hence why you see this flywheel kicking into play. And Equalizer, they only lock the tokens for 6 months instead of 4 years like some of the other forks like Velodrome, Thena, etc. So they have a nice flywheel going, and most of their tokens that are locked, it's about 69 to 70%, which is very healthy. And then, of course, you have another one on Arbitrum. This is Sliz, or Solid Lizard. And I talked about this on my channel, 2 weeks ago, when it was trading around 10 cents. Well, the Sliz token actually took off and went nuts and ham and went up to about 80 cents. And now it's trading at around 16 cents. It's still above where we made the video. But what's going on with Sliz, or Solid Lizard, is the flywheel is starting to fall apart. And the main reason for this is, if you look at the DEXs on Arbitrum, there's like no volume on Solid Lizard. And let me show you an example. Solid Lizard has 1.8 million in 24-hour volume. Whereas it has how much in liquidity? About, well, it was actually 78, but whatever. It says 81 million. So let's look at one of the competitors. Let's go ahead and look at Camelot. I spelled that wrong. Camelot, Grail. This has about 79 million in TVL. Let's go ahead and see how much volume Camelot has. As you can see here, the Camelot volume is 9.4 million. There's more liquidity on Solid Lizard, but yet Camelot has more than 4 times the volume. Remember, these flywheels have to work with a volume that is feeding the beast. If people are not earning enough for locking and staking their Sliz, they're not going to lock and stake it. Now, there is a way to fix this and help this. You have to tweak the fees and try to stop the bleeding. But as more liquidity leaves, you're going to start to get into a situation where there is no coming back. Now, I'm not saying Sliz is dead. Obviously, time will tell. We'll see what happens. It could be a great buying opportunity for this. But there needs to be some form of pivot. Either A, they need to focus on the long tail assets, like these, or they need to lower their fees and make them more competitive. The fees on Sliz for some of the pairs are 0.4%, whereas some of them are like 0.2%, and Velodrome is 0.05%. So they have to stop the bleeding somehow. Now, there are some other forks that I'm looking at that will be interesting to see rise from the ashes. One of them is, wow, it literally just jumped 4x. That's a lot of TVL. Is Equilibre. So Equilibre is a fork on Kava Chain. Now, what's going to be interesting about them is similar to Optimism and the OP token, they're going to have the Kava token given as incentive. The Kava Foundation already mentioned it was going to be like $1 million as liquidity incentives for the people on the chain. So on the Kava EVM, there's really like a handful of chains. So the DEXs that are on there are going to get a majority of those liquidity incentives, which they could use that to pay people to lock up. Who knows? As always, time will tell. And another one that I really like is Velocimeter. Now, of course, these two are degen guys. They have not been proven. As always, time will tell. We'll see what happens. Caesar Snack Sandwich is behind this one. Shout out to him. Make sure you guys check out his channel. The guy's a cool guy. Velocimeter is actually on Canto. Now, what's interesting about Canto is that, well, yeah, I can't believe it. Canto is a chain to where there are no fees, as in like there are no swap fees. And introducing something like Velocimeter will be extremely interesting because if people are depositing on the Canto DEX and not earning fees as an LP, of course they're earning some APRs, you get into a situation where people are like, wait, if I'm only getting like 110% or 120% paid in the Canto token, and the Canto Foundation just mentioned that they're actually going to be lowering this even more, yeah, they made an announcement, I'm going to go where liquidity takes care of me best. And I want to show you this screenshot, 112 million here, but you can see it's starting to decline. Let's look at Velocimeter. Where is the liquidity going? Could it be going to flow? As always, time will tell. We'll see what happens. Those are two of the DEXs that I have on my radar. Yeah, there are a couple of others that haven't rolled out yet. I have my eyes on. If you guys are in the Discord, you guys know what those are. And if you guys want to join the Discord, there's a link in the description below. I share a lot more stuff that I don't share on YouTube. It takes a lot of time to put together these videos, so if you guys do enjoy them, make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe to the channel. And if you guys want to see some random tweets on Twitter, you guys can check out the Twitter. I dropped some of the projects and tokens that I'm looking at. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's go ahead and hit you guys with a wisdom one-liner. It's like 1 a.m. I got to go to bed, guys. It's Proverbs chapter 10, verses 8. The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin. Be wise, be good. Listen to your elders, especially. Peace. By the way, I'm extremely bullish on the DeFi space, and anyone who's out there in the VE33 space and looking to build one of these DEXs, I'd love to help you. Just shoot me a DM on Twitter or on Discord, Telegram, whatever. I would love to chat, tell you some things that worked, tell you some things that didn't. I've seen a lot of these do well. I've seen a lot of them fail. I've just seen what works, and I want to see a DEX come out there and be successful. So if you're building one, feel free to hit me up. I'd love to help you. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Peace.